The filter-free diary. Uh,
Hey, it's 4:16 and I'm watched this thing on YouTube about the dire wolf or the company that's like cloning the dire wolf, but what they're really doing is cloning a gray wolf. But anyways, I watched this thing and their whole premise was that the ecosystem is like, you know, a tower of Jenga blocks, right? They're all interlocking, they're all interacting. They all rely on one another and feed on one another, and that's how an ecosystem can exist, is because all the little pieces are in balance. And man kind of has some trouble with that sometimes. Yeah, like introducing toads to Australia, I guess it was. And the idea was because the toad was gonna do? It was gonna eat something or kill something. But then I guess it had no natural predators because that was not the right Jenga block for that ecosystem, right? I guess not. But I guess that's what man has kind of been doing. And to be fair, that's the best way to learn, strangely enough. To experiment, yes, to make your mistakes, to just try and do and try and understand. It's okay. You're actually allowed to learn. What you're not allowed to do is repeat, what you do that's wrong, and once you learn that it's wrong, right? So anyways, yeah, learning, science, all that stuff, great. And what man has learned is this whole Jenga interlocking, puzzle that is the ecosystem. And I just can't help, reflect on that, as I always do. Because when it comes to the design of this world, the whole father, mother, son design of this world, and don't get me wrong, there is definitely a four. But the four happens to be, the father turned inside out. It's not a daughter. It's rest, food, energy, decay. So having that whole ecosystem set up that way, the father, the mother, and the son, is what makes like all the patterns in this world make sense, right? Because once you understand that, you're like, oh, that's why, the sun, the biggest thing, is like the father, and the moon, the second biggest thing, is like, the mother. And then of course there is, our planet, which is kind of like looking up to the father and the mother. It's kind of like the sun. It's not, though, because that's Mercury. But just the design of things can start to make sense when you understand the underlying architecture, right? But then man comes along and it's like, no, spirit isn't actually spirit. Spirit is gonna be something totally separate from everything, right? It's gonna be this God thing that nothing can reach. And once you take number one out of the equation and try to shift all the numbers, you start to have things fall apart, right? Like, that's the reason why the Merkaba doesn't make sense the way people keep trying to explain it, right? Because number one is not the masculine. Number one's never going to be the masculine. Fire, the sun, those symbols are always going to be spirit. And that's why they can't make sense of that. And that's why a lot of the secrets in the tarot have been lost. And just by shifting the architecture of this world by shifting the ecosystem and making man number one, and making number one, something that cannot be reached. It's created a whole effect throughout the whole ecosystem on this planet. The whole ecosystem. The things that people understand, the way things function, the way things interact. And I just can't think of a better example of like a Jenga style ecosystem, and what happens when you take one block out, when you remove the spirit block and instead insert the masculine block in there, and then how everything can be scrambled and nobody can really make sense of anything, right? We have all these words, but these words don't make sense because we're not using the right pieces for those words. And if anything, this could be the greatest lesson for the minds here on this world, right? This could be the ultimate science. Look what happens when, right? You mess up the ecosystem. And then for it to be so easy to put back into alignment, so easy. And then for it to reveal so many fucking things, like your world of chaos is just a step away from order. Step away from order. Have a good day.